Welcome to another episode of Coming to Your Senses, where we talk about navigating the labyrinth of the mind and emerging victorious. And today I am joined by a friend and fellow personal growth seeker, Mr. Niri Patel, who I just had the realization that we've been friends and known each other for 18 years, which I find weird referencing knowing somebody for that length of time these days, but that's the truth. So welcome, Niri, and thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I guess you must have been about 5 when we met then.
Yeah, absolutely. I was around about, I was probably about 6 or 7, yeah. Sadly not. So for me, coming to your senses are those moments in life where we get a bit of a nudge, or maybe sometimes it's a great big shove. And I think that there are many of them that happen for us. But what would you say was a moment where you came to your senses, and where and what did that then lead you to?
Yeah, I guess it's there's never one moment, but there are moments that stand out. And certainly in my adult life, I'd say one of those was when I was working in the city. I'd been working for about a year and a half, um, and I hated it. I was stressed out. I was regularly ill. I was spending more time off work than I was in work, apart from the times when I was struggling in being vertically ill, where you're well enough to get to work, but really, the body's there, but the mind's not there. And it was during this time that I feel that I had a real shift. I realized, or had been feeling for a while, that something had to change, but I didn't know what it was. And it was at that time that I came across a book by Tony Robbins called Unlimited Power. And it was focused on success. But in there, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 7th chapter. It's called Physiology, the Avenue of Excellence. And in that book, he talked about the fact that you can have all these goals and all these amazing strategies that he taught in the book. But if you don't have the physical well-being and the energy and the vitality to go out and pursue and execute those strategies and techniques, etc., it wasn't going to happen. And I thought, yep, that's me. I was sat in bed with one of my spells off work, reading this, thinking, yeah, okay. So I changed my diet and I changed my lifestyle, and it was a major shift. And from there, actually, it led me on a path that completely has led me to where I am today. It was one of those pivotal moments in my life.
I think it's definitely something that when I first met you, and your lovely wife as well, Catherine, that I don't think I really had ever thought about my physiology. Really, I was very much more of the assumption of, well, this is the body I've got, this is the health I've got, this is sort of a done deal. I don't really get to have a say in it. I genuinely didn't think I had a say in it. And you and Catherine used to run a group where people came together, the S Group North, and came together, and you were pivotal in bringing some health experts in that. I'm pretty sure I don't speak for just myself here, but for so many of us that were in the room, it was like just wake up and see that you can do something about this. And there were so many things that I've done many times in my life now since then, and have changed and experimented and tweaked. And what for you would you say was the pivotal change? Because I'm guessing you would have been in your 20s when you were working in the financial world in the city, and probably hooked into the very mainstream way of that world of, probably not great diet food wise, probably limiting exercise or pushing it really hard at the gym. I think it seems to be two extremes. What would you say was the first thing that you were like, okay, that needs to change, and you got on, and you've it's a similar change that you have now, you've stuck with it?
Yeah, so you're right. I was pretty active. I used to play squash once or twice a week when I was working in the city. Um, did a fair bit of exercise, but it was variable. It wasn't really focused on being healthy. It was more, well, it's good to play with your colleagues or have a game. And I enjoyed playing squash. but the lifestyle was not conducive to what you would call a healthy lifestyle. There was just eating indiscriminately, drinking, and the culture at work was to go out drinking after work, and all those things. And yeah, so I was really ill, and luckily, the company I worked for had a private medical plan. So I went to all the top consultants and specialists and got various treatments, and I'd have temporary relief, but it would all come back because the root cause wasn't being addressed. And that was my lifestyle, my way of thinking to an extent as well, and my outlook on life. So that's why this chapter 7, I think it is, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I need to go get the book off my bookshelf and check it. I changed my diet, and that was it. It transformed everything. I started eating much better, started exercising regularly, but in a way that I wasn't beat up the next day, and actually had more energy and felt better. And then, I started running health events because people were coming to me saying, God, Niri, you used to be always tired, always miserable. Half the time you wouldn't come out with us on a weekend because you just said you didn't feel up to it. And now you're sort of bouncing off the walls. What is it you're doing? So I was sharing that because anytime you do something that really impacts you tend to share that. I started sharing with people, and a lot of those people got similar benefits. Some didn't, but most did. And then I got into the whole thing of what is it that makes some people get the result, whereas others don't. And that's the whole area of motivational psychology.
If you've listened to the first episode of Coming to Your Senses, you'll know that in the early 2000s, I experienced a breakdown. I tried different therapies, but it was coaching that truly helped me transform my life. Initially, when I discovered coaching, though, I couldn't afford it. And it was a kind soul who sponsored me not only to have coaching, but also to train and become a coach. And my promise to them was that I would pay it forward. And I've done that in many ways over the years, initially through social media and private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution, and also through Coming to Your Senses, the podcast. But it triggered for me a passion to really want to make and create a secure, supportive space for people to be able to come together and have conversations that transform their lives. So I created the Conscious Conversations community. It's a group where we meet on more than once a month, and we have a focused theme which is guided by the community and facilitated by me. There's hundreds of hours of learning and resources and materials to help you transform your life in a like-minded space. Because I get passionate about it, and because this was my promise to pay it forward, I'm offering you the opportunity to trial it for £1 for the first month. If that appeals to you, then head to juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer. juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer to explore what's available for you through being part of a conscious community. So before we get into that, because I'd love to know where you're at with regards to that, but I think what would be really lovely is to define healthy, and specifically healthy lifestyle. And the reason being is that I find it fascinating that it's extremely rare that I can go to the supermarket and get my normal shop without either a customer in the queue or a cashier saying something along the lines of, "Oh, you on a diet?" Pretty much, I would say 80% of the time, someone makes a comment about what's in my trolley. So I'm not on a diet. I don't do diets because they've never worked for me. I don't believe that they work. But I do think that, similar to yourself, my lifestyle and the way that I live now and is very, very different to how it was before. But I'd love to know how you would define healthy and or healthy lifestyle.
I'll do that. If I could just say, there seems to be an obsession with weight loss in a particular segment of the population. Certain people of a certain age, there's this absolute obsession. And the whole thing about dieting is, why are you doing it? If it's to not have something, then that's very different to what you do want. So for me, to answer your question, I think it's being healthy is being able to do everything you want in life, and having the physical as well as the emotional energy and resource to pursue it with zest and vigor, rather than waking up in the morning like I used to. The alarm clock would go off and I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Snooze, snooze,
Yeah,
snooze.
instead of jumping out of bed, you're rolling over to hide under the duvet for another 5 to 10 minutes, etc. So yeah, I'd say that's what health is, that in a succinct way.
And I think that, you know, one of the things, I mean, God, there's, as you're talking, I'm kind of having Yes Group North flashbacks of different workshops and different people that you guys introduced me to. And it was just everything from having a live blood analysis, for example, and therefore starting to say, oh, hang on a second, you can see things in your blood that can then help you identify what's there. And by doing something different, you can actually see the difference, sometimes in the moment, sometimes, you know, after that. But I think one of the biggest things that I took away from my understanding with all of that was exactly as you're saying, is if I want to do the things that I say that I want to do, which isn't necessarily about running a marathon or climbing a mountain, it may well be, but just having the vitality to get up and do my work without it being I need another coffee, I need another chocolate bar, or I need another something hit to get me through to the end of the day. I genuinely find it odd when someone mentions about a snack now, because I'm a little bit like, what's a snack? Why do you need a snack? Not because I'm judging them, but I've just so got out of the habit of even thinking about it. What um, what would you say then when because what I'm hearing when you have the initial chapter 7, if it is chapter 7, was very much kind of woke you up to the physiological changes that you can make from what you consume and how you move your body, and you then moved into looking at it from a thinking perspective and the psychology behind it. What did you discover with both of those that has made a significant difference?
I think so. One of the things I recognized quite early on is a blanket approach doesn't work. And we've, the audience, whoever you are, if you're watching this, you'll have had a time in your life where it was, right, if you do the Cambridge soup diet, or the cabbage soup diet, or the Cambridge diet, or the Atkins diet, or the keto, or this one or that one, or don't mix your carbs and your proteins, or juice only. There's a diet of the day, right, or a diet of the week. One size doesn't fit all. That's what really a fad is. You think that it's going to solve everyone's ails, and if that was the case, and if diets did work, we wouldn't have some of the health challenges that people are experiencing. So I realized that very quickly. The other thing is, I think depending on what stage or season of your life you're in, different things work differently for you. My energy and nutritional requirements are very different now at 57 years old than even in my late 40s or 30s or 20s. The basics are still the same, I think, but overall, some of the things I need, and just in terms of the exercise or the type of exercise I need, there's a lot of research now that once you cross that 40 something age bracket, you need to do a lot more strength training. But until then, all my life, I'd been brought up to think you've got to do cardio and you've got to do volume, and you've got to run marathons, and God bless you if you want to do that, that's fine. But like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. You may not even be that fit. You might actually be damaging your body because it's catabolic. It breaks the body down. So I think if I still remember the question, what works and what doesn't is variable, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve. And one size doesn't fit all.
I think that's the. I mean, it's been a conversation with many of the guests on the podcast that I've had so far when we've wandered into the world of health, and especially, obviously, I can only speak about it from a woman's perspective, but I certainly know that what's viable for my body now at 51 is not the same as it was 5 years ago. Having gone through menopause and experiencing all the shifts with that, it's kind of this constant exploration of, hang on a second, that worked last week, but it's not really working this week. What's required? And I think that as well as the diet industry pushing out all of these different methodologies, which are, I wrote down 2 words, which was quick fix. And it's this I need to get a result quickly. So therefore, it's just this immediate. Well, what can I do, and how can I grab it? And I think it's the same with from a psychological perspective as well, which is why many of us end up, and I include myself, reaching out for methodologies which kind of evade the root cause. You mentioned the root cause earlier, and it wasn't. They were a cover up. They weren't really getting to the root cause. And what for you on your 25 plus year journey of self-discovery, exploration, health discovery and exploration, what would you say are the fundamental things that have lasted for you, that are, even if they need a slight tweak, what are that's it, that one's not going to change? What are your staples?
In no particular order. Number one, move. Just move. Sitting is the new smoking. It's leading people to an earlier grave. So move, whatever that movement is. And when we move, we feel differently, which leads me, I think, onto the second one, which is just being in your body rather than your head, especially with modern devices now, with phones and things like that. People are so much in their head that they're disconnected. My brother-in-law, Dave, who's a network chiropractor, and after you spend a session with him, within just a few minutes, you reconnect fully and you feel like a real human being rather than this robot who's plugged in to the interweb of things. So that's another one. And then in terms of eating, eating moderately, not eating huge amounts. That's something that I used to struggle with a lot. On occasion, I do have a blowout, but eating moderate amounts, and then trying to eat lots of clean food, whole food. So, not processed. Fruits, vegetables, grains, seeds, and nuts. And eating slowly and mindfully. Do I do that all the time? No, definitely not. I probably need to just revisit that and start thinking, okay, just slow down, breathe. Just simple basics like that. But I think we get so caught up in the busyness and the frantic pace of life and demands that are on us that we lose sight of that. And just taking time to, in terms of being present and mindful, taking time to meditate or do some sort of mindfulness practice, or going for a walk in nature, or having some alone and downtime. I'd say those are pretty universal still, or certainly for me and anyone else I look around who seems to have it sorted.
I don't know if any of us actually have it sorted, Niri. I think that's a little bit,
little bit. Yeah, I think you're right. So scale, isn't it? So
yeah,
they seem to be all right on the whole, rather than a train wreck.
But I think it's for me, all joking aside with that, I absolutely don't have it sorted. But what I do know that I have is I have a foundation of resources that I can go back to, so that when the proverbial hits the fan, even if I have been, mindlessly eating, that it only takes that one comment or that one reminder or that bloatingness or looking down at my plate to going and eat something else and realize that the whole lot's gone, of just going, hang on a second. And I think that that's a key that many of us forget, is I think that we don't give ourselves, I think this is another, I don't know what the right word is, shadow side, I suppose, of dieting, is it puts so much judgment and pressure on anything that you do outside of that diet that it becomes this self-flagellation kind of process that's just not healthy. A healthy way of in my view isn't about never having that thing and starving myself of that thing, because if my body needs that thing, I'm going to have it. But it's having the awareness of whether I'm having it too much or at the right time, and having that awareness to make those adjustments. And I think that that's definitely something that I have. I wouldn't say that I've got my life sorted, but I 100% know I've got the resources and the resilience now to be able to deal with things when the shit hits the fan. What I'm curious about, because you have worked in the business world with some very, very successful and very full on, in my view, business people. And yet the way that you show up, especially over the last 10 plus years, is kind of the complete opposite of that. What's a way in that those people that are kind of, I suppose, how you were in your 20s in that city, because there's a lot of people that are still very caught up in that, but really want that slowed down version of life. What's a point in for them that makes it accessible and sustainable as well?
Yeah, so I don't know that I have a slowed down version of life.
I'm pretty sure you're still full on.
It's pretty full on. But if I understand what you're saying is, I can still show up in a full on frenetic, frantic situation and be calmness inside,
Yeah.
and be able to read the situation and not lose it, or go into that and get caught up in the franticness of it. And I think the real, it's never done. You're right. It's always a work in progress. But the thing is to recognize, for me personally, I feel that it's a work in progress and success is an inside job. And I use success in the more holistic sense of the word, rather than you've got a squillion pounds or you've built a business or whatever. And for me, the people who are really present and calm, regardless of what's going on, and that's what allows me, if you like, to still make the tough decisions. Are they easy? No. Is it stressful? Yes. But if I can find a moment of calm, a moment of peace, a moment of clarity, that's what I'm looking for before I make major significant decisions. Sometimes you just don't have the luxury of that, and it's like you've got a gun to your head and you have to make a snap decision, and you just trust that it'll be right. So yeah, I think that how do you find an inroad into that? I think the realization that it's about you as a person and how you want to show up. You're probably aware of this, that there are two visions we need to have from our work with the One World Academy. You have your life vision, which is all the things you want to see and experience and do. So travel, build a business, have a great family, be healthy, all those things. And then you have a personal vision, which is about the dominant emotional states you want to experience that in. So you could go and see the world and have the person of your dreams and your family and your business and your wealth and everything else. But if you don't have clarity on what matters to you most, as humans, we experience a range of emotions. And some of those, they end up being around us. You know, there are people around us that you can't always escape. If you go on the train to London, you're going to experience a range of moods that are being thrown at you. And if you don't have clarity on where your center is, even though you can get pushed out by it because somebody's really stressed and they shove you out the way, you have the opportunity to react in that moment out of self-preservation. And it could be whatever it is based on how that journey's gone. But, okay, well, sometimes I'll do my Buddhist Zen thing and think, oh, they must be really late. I hope they get there on time. But other times it's like, how dare they, you know? And because I have a personal vision, or somebody has that personal vision, they decide, do I want to carry on feeling like this? Does it actually feel good? And if it doesn't, then I have a choice in that moment to say, okay, what do I need to do to see how I'm causing myself to feel that. Yes, I'm being triggered, but the trigger was 5 minutes ago, 5 hours ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, 5 decades ago. Is it appropriate now as a response? And in that moment, I have a choice to say yes or no, or I don't want it to be. And I step into whether it's happiness or creativity or whatever it is within my personal vision. And there's a set of dominant emotions there that I do my best to experience on an ongoing basis.
I love that, and I love the reminder that somebody shoves me. Yes, there is a physical impact on me, but actually, as you say, I then have a choice as to how long and in what way I carry that on. There might be a primal FU in that moment, but to carry that on for the rest of my day and that be a then perpetual story everyone I meet. Do you know this guy? I was at the platform and he just shoved me and he didn't even apologize and da da da. And then a week later, I'm still telling the story. And then a month and a year and 5 years and da 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 da. And it becomes, funnily enough, I was thinking about this Saturday when I was at the gym, walking around with some kettlebells. And I was just walking around with them because, as you do, that's what you do, right? Don't do any lifting with them. Just carry them as if they're a bunch of 2 shopping bags. And I was walking around with them and I was actually thinking about how heavy some of those things are that people carry, of because he did that to me, she did that to me, that never happened, I didn't get this, etc., etc. And how much of a story we then, that 1 kilogram weight of an event gets bigger and heavier and heavier and heavier. And the more times we retell it, the more add-on stories and and justifying its existence rather than recognizing that we can put it down. The weights I was carrying at the gym on Saturday are helpful to help me in my strength, but I can put them down, and I did put them down. But if I'm carrying a story around with me, then that's going to be impacting me, not the person who's bumped into me at the station. That's going to be impacting me. And I think that my guess is, from a business perspective, that's such a helpful skill for, regardless of the size of the business or where somebody is within that business, such a helpful skill to practice, so that you can then, when events happening, you're not taking it as personal as you maybe would be, or carrying it on, or have that then prohibit you from doing something else because, well, that happened back then. I love that. There's something else that you said as well that I'd love to pick up on, because I'm always curious as to, you used one of my favorite words, which is clarity. And also you're talking about, there are times when you've got the opportunity to gain the clarity to then make a decision from that point. And then there's other times where it's like, no, the decision needs to be made really quickly. And then you make the decision trusting that you've made the right decision. What inner guidance, information, intuition, wisdom, what is it for you that helps you, whether you've got a period of time to gain that clarity or whether it's a quick decision? What is it that you use to navigate that, or to navigate?
Wow. I'll have a stab at articulating it, because I think it's something that I kind of have developed over time. And there's a degree of unconscious competence involved. And I don't know if it's the perfect system, but generally I have a sense of, that's the right thing to do. Let's do that. And over decades, I have, since I left the city, I sort of found my path or general sense of direction. Intrinsic in that was always to help people and add value, and look out to, Zig Ziglar said, if you can help enough other people do what they want, you'll have what you want. So that's sort of inbuilt, that any business I've been involved in, I've always looked at, well, how is this really going to serve the society or community or target group of my customer base? So that's intrinsic, and that's part of the decision-making process. So I look at, what's the the effect on the ecology of this decision that is going to be made. And I'll be able to see very quickly if it benefits me personally or the business or the company. But it's not just business that this applies to. This thing of getting bumped by someone. It's life. You're either spreading the love or you're spreading the hate, or somewhere on the borderline. But it's one or the other, really. You're either adding or taking away, albeit without intending to, or at a very subtle level. So you work out whether it's right for you at some level, and the business or the family or the organization or the community or whatever. And then you think about, how does this impact the customers, the marketplace, the trainers involved, the franchisees involved? And I just look through and say, yeah, okay, tick, 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 tick. That's great. That's an easy decision. Everyone's going to win off this. Everyone's going to be able to feast. No one's going to go without. That's an easy decision. And then there are other decisions which are somewhat tougher because you can't easily see that. But that's where, if you like, the vision of, okay, it's going to be tough in the short term, but in the long term, it's actually going to serve everybody. And I guess it comes down to the actual decision and the situation. The level of thought varies. But on the whole, I'd say those are the two governing principles, really. Is it going to serve everyone? And overall, does it leave the situation or the world a better place because of it, even if just marginal?
To me, that goes back to what you were talking about earlier about having that, knowing yourself and having that personal vision, because then you've got that reference point, you've got that guidance system, because then I suppose the more that's known, the more that's explored to see if is that still true for me? Is that still true for me? Then when decisions come in, then it becomes easier to filter because you've already got that as your signpost, for want of a better way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other? We've mentioned a few, but one of my sort of kind of last question really is around ways for us to navigate the chaos that goes on in the world, so that we can engage with more awareness and clarity in a moment by moment. Because, as you say, those moments on the station platform, they happen. So how can we, in the everyday life, access more of that clarity for ourselves, that awareness? I know you've mentioned some things, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk more to.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. I think what you do often you get good at. So if you repeatedly try and bring attention to a situation and think, what's really troubling me here? Why am I harassed? Why am I clenching my teeth? Why am I just going to the fridge when I know I've just eaten half an hour ago and I had a good fill? Some of that might just be patterned habituation, like happened during COVID. A dear friend of ours, who I think you might know, called Brigitte. She's a master trainer with Robbins, and she does her own coaching and consultancy work. I remember seeing on a Facebook feed, or whatever it's called, a picture of a sign inside a fridge that said, "You are not hungry, you are just bored." Going to the fridge, I thought, yes,
I love that.
Through lockdown. So a lot of it is patterned, but sometimes it's just the overall. I mean, if we're speaking about lockdown, a lot of people had a heightened state of anxiety and angst and nerves. And when we're in that state, we don't think clearly. We're just in survival mode. So you start doing things to try and calm down. And without realizing it, food is a comfort thing. So a lot of people who overeat, it's not because they're eating the wrong things or doing the wrong, well, you need to look at what's driving that. So bringing that attention and awareness to your behaviors, if you feel they're not serving you or something doesn't feel right, take a breath, literally. There's a simple 3-minute practice that I think we're both aware of, where you close your eyes and you just follow your breath for 3 or 4 counts and think, what am I actually feeling here? What is behind this emotion? And it's not about fixing it or changing it, but it's just saying, the reason I'm uptight, or the reason I'm feeling ratty, or the reason I'm feeling off key is because that's weighing on my mind. How are we going to make payroll this month? Or I had an argument with somebody a few days ago, or there was a bit of road rage, and I'm still carrying that. Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? And it's, I can't change it. And you might not be able to change the situation that's causing that, but just knowing, if you name it, you tame it. It's that sort of thing. And then again, you can move into saying, okay, well, that's good. I recognize that. So I don't actually need to eat the fifth donut or whatever it is in the last 5 minutes. And then you can actually make a more conscious choice. Awareness, consciousness, they're synonymous in my mind. So I think that's a really good practice. How often do you do it? As often as you need. I know when I first found out this technique, I just thought, you mean I have to stop and do this? Actually, yes. The more you do it, because then you find your resting state is closer to being able to actually take it all in, see it for what it is, and not have it affect your mood adversely, and keep going, and continue to behave and act in a more productive and effective way. Because the flip side is this, that when we're stressed, we actually look for more stress. It's a survival instinct that's built in. We look for the danger. So we're in a heightened state of panic and anxiety, and we interpret situations completely differently. There's a story of, I can't remember what it was. I was listening to an audiobook a little while back, and the lady was talking about, it was on the day or a couple of days after 9/11 happened. And there was a man near the area, sprinting like crazy. She didn't know why he was doing that, but he clearly looked a bit distressed. And about 50 people started just running, because in their mind they had that, what if it's another attack or some sort of danger like that, because they were in this fight, flight, freeze type state of mind. And that's essentially what we do. We get caught up in this herd mentality when we're stressed, and we don't make the right decisions. Whereas when you're calmer, you're actually more exploratory, and you'll take bigger risks because you're more optimistic.
I think the definition and the distinction that I hear with that, which is around that, I don't think many of us, I certainly didn't realize how much of what's going on in how we are rather on an everyday basis is happening automatically because of the way that the thinking mind works, and it's just programmed. So I know during lockdown I ended up coming back into the office because where I was sat was facing the kitchen, and all of a sudden I'm up making another drink, or I'm going to the fridge, or and I'm like, I'm not thirsty, I'm not hungry, but it's just that automatic side of things. And then what I love with that is that the awareness is that consciousness. It's like just coming into consciousness. I saw a video of Eckhart Tolle recently, and he stated, if you just do one conscious breath every day, then the difference will be phenomenal, because it's one more conscious breath than you've ever taken before. And I think that the automatic, and then you said, you mean I've got to slow down and check everything? I think it seems such an enormous thing that many people just go, well, it's too much, I won't do that. But actually, just every so often, and the moment you've, in my experience and with clients as well, is that the moment you've made the commitment to just go, do you know what, I'm just going to give this a go, it starts to feed, and you end up doing it a little bit more and a little bit more, and so that then when I do get triggered by something, and I'm like, oh, well, what's the trigger? That's what triggered it, but where's the trigger within me? And it becomes a game after a while, which is far more easier than the getting annoyed stuff. So it goes to your point about, well, where do I want to come from? Do I want to come from the hate, or do I want to come from the love? Because both are viable if I look for them. It's completely my choice.
One, it's that one breath, but then the next breath is easier, conscious breath, obviously still breathing, and it builds momentum, and it becomes a habit. And habits are hard to break by definition. That's why they're called habits. It's just, we consciously work at building the habit that is supportive of us, then it becomes something that you just do. You're breathing anyway, you might as well do it better in a way that serves you rather than stresses you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you would really like us to have a moment and talk about?
That's a great question. I think it's fabulous what you do. I've been a fan of you and your work for ages, and it's
Thank you.
just fantastic. Every time I bump into you online or in person, I just think, oh, wow, that's really cool. You've done something else that's amazing. Um, yeah, the world needs people to pause and take a step back because, you're in a if you're in a moment of calm, you can actually do some good without realizing the impact of it. And it's that thing of, if somebody's going around carrying that stress and that anxiety and telling the story, then are we passing that on? Potentially, I think we might be, because we're making it okay to do that. And that's not to say a problem shared isn't a problem halved, but having that awareness and that attention. So, yeah, I just think that if people made a conscious effort to take a pause, take a breath, and think, how can I actually do some good in my own little way in whatever I'm doing, then that would be a phenomenal thing for us all to do.
I think that's a phenomenal place to leave it as well, Niri. I think I've been a fan of yours too. So it's mutual appreciation society going on here. I think that what you have done and what you have shared and introduced, not just me to, but a phenomenal amount of people, not just through Yes Group North when that was running, but in so many ways from the businesses that you've impacted, the people that you impact. It's just this amazing ripple effect that just, it's the gift that keeps on giving that is Niri Patel. So thank you very much. We'll obviously put all of your details in the show notes so people can reach out to you in whatever way you would like them to reach out and connect with you. But thank you so much for being on the planet. Thank you for being here at this point in my life and being around for 18 years. Long there may it continue. And I look forward to catching up with you again very soon, be that online or in person.
That's fabulous, Jules. Thanks for having me. Lots of love to you too.